Okay, thank you. Next up, and the last session before the break, Simon Furber from Brunel University. Now, most of us are aware of the new Jisc shared services data centers. Some of us are using them quite effectively, mostly for HPC, high performance compute or research. And Simon has got the story of a journey to move some of their operational IT resilience model into the Slough data center. So I'll get out of the way and let Simon tell you about it.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment on your last presentation as well. As one of the things we've done in our comms with security is that it isn't about fishing now, it's about whaling. So whaling is fishing for big fish, which are the execs. So you've given them their own name. Not only is it fishing, but they're targeting you with whaling. Hi, I'm Simon Furber. I work from Brunel University, London. We had to add that word to our title as well because everybody thought we were in Bristol, which is really quite ironic, giving this talk in Bristol today. So this is just a bit of a journey that we've been on over the last 3 years. My first apology is if you were expecting the person who's in the program. That's a photo of me before I started the program, and I look like this now. Or in reality, it was 20 years ago, so I apologize for that. I'm misrepresenting myself as this youthful person that I no longer am. So this is the sort of question when we were posed with, and I also have my colleague at the back of the room, Alan, who thinks he's going to get away with saying nothing, which he probably will, but he's there anyway. Is a number of years ago, we were faced with this question, this lovely little building that you see on your right, and just to bring it into sharp focus, is the John Crank building. For a very long time, it's been the ambition to knock this building down and make it the teaching and learning centre, which will occupy the whole footprint of that, the whole height of that tower. So it's a very, very large building. And posed with the question, so we're going to knock that down, no real problems, let's get on with it. So these are sort of most of the main issues that we've had with it. The building contained our original primary data center. That was our node 0. I mean, if I didn't take a photo of it, it's very 70s carpeted data center, disorganized racks. I mean, we've all been there. It also contained, at the time when this all began, was our Janet connections. There are BT connections, Virgin Media connections. The building is our home, so we live in it as well. Along with the maths department, although they have just recently moved out. The campus is repacking and reorganizing itself constantly, so basically there is no space. We're building offices and cupboards everywhere to put staff in. There's no time. This program is, we need you out now, or maybe September, or maybe September next year, or maybe by Easter, or maybe by the summer. The program has always been that we've had no time. Currently it's set December this year, which we think is a hard rule this time. And this construction of this new learning and teaching centre really is the big driver. It's a very strategic project for the university. We had a lot of constraints on what we could and couldn't do, one of which is that we're not allowed another data centre on site. That was an absolute non-negotiable item. A lot of confusion over what the cloud did or didn't fix. I think everybody assumed that everything we just put in the cloud and that's the end of it. The strategy, I think, as some presentations have already alluded, is a little bit in between those two things and isn't something that you just jump into. So we have to deal with that expectation of what the gap is between what the cloud is and what it does. The scale of the project, that's just generally from end to end what we had to do and what the university was trying to do. It was absolutely, it was huge, but it was non-negotiable. Timing and the pressures to demolish, they have been literally knocking our building down for 2 years, Alan, I think. Definitely coming down. Definitely September. Definitely coming down. Get out. We've had to separate in the building the core functionality of the core network. We introduced the university the term point of presence and the data center. And the whole thing needs an awful lot of planning and an awful lot of funding. A lot of funding is taken at risk and a lot of planning with a very old building. The other thing I should say is the building is part of the original set of the Clockwork Orange as well. So fortunately nobody's noticed that and listed it yet. So the John Crank project is what we call it. It actually has a number of aspects. It has its own project board, it has its own program manager, it reports to the CIO and it reports up through the Chief Operating Officer. So these are the basic aims of that, which is to get everything in our data center 1 out into DC2, I'll talk about that in a second, or move it to the shared data center, or SDC, the Slough data center is what we use that prefix for, to retire any old hardware we can, to virtualize anything we can, We have to find a new home for the core network itself, because one thing you can't put in the cloud is your physical network. That was a bit difficult to explain as well. We tried to limit the footprint of that to about 55 meters from the existing one. The idea there was to try and be able to move as many services as possible, pick up a fiber, move it, re-terminate it, and trying to minimize the impact of a phased approach to that. And we've also done this big design of, well, the fiber network isn't ideal if we have to keep moving things around, because we can guarantee having what we've just done, the university want to move it again, is to try and build something that is designed that it's agile enough to be able to be moved, added to, and changed in the future. So we've taken nothing as permanent. We need to find a new home for ourselves, the teaching IT work areas. We have a disaster recovery facility within the building, and we have all of our equipment and storage, all of those things that people don't want to give you storage to, but you need to actually sort of do the BAU, the business. And there was also a large project that Alan and his team, basically revamping our VMware fleet and reprocuring storage. So a lot of things were sort of put together under the same project board. We did have some luck, so these are the things that we were able to take advantage of. We already had Data Center 2, DC2 as we call it, which we've been using for business continuity and disaster recovery, running as a pair of stretched data centers for a significant period of time. That was built about 6 years ago, and it's pretty good, the sort of thing you'd find in a commercial building. We were lucky enough to get onto the Jank optical network, predominantly to do with our bandwidth requirements about research. So we had and have 2 optical nodes on site, and that links us directly into Imperial, and then via Roll Holloway out to Reading and back into London to UCL. So 86 kilometers that way, 186 kilometers that way. So I'm not sitting up here and wanting to give people bandwidth envy, but we are very lucky and very grateful for Jisc for that. And we avoided putting one of those nodes at the time in Data Center 2, because that was the obvious place to put it, to co-locate it with a data center. So we ducked that bullet at the time by not having something else to move later. The Jisc shared center at Infinity, now Vertis, was just down the road. Just down the road is about 8 miles. Seems to still take us 45 minutes to get there. Makes it convenient that, you can just pop in there on the way home. Trouble is, it's the other direction to which I go. But the timing was really good because of what we were doing with VMware hardware falling off support and being replaced, and storage being replaced. So once again, it happened at the right time, so we could do those in the right sequence. And we were also able to sort of just generally look at not putting more things into DC1 that we became aware of. Program's taken, like I said, 2-3 years to sort of really get to this stage. So over that time, we've really been planning not to create a bigger problem for ourselves in the long run. So we built a Schneider cube, just the racks that we actually use down at Slough Data Center. That's a picture of Data Hall 3. We were the first people in there, because I was standing there in an empty data hall, and we were the pod in this bottom left corner. And on the day we went down there to install it, there was a dirty great big row of racks from UCL. So we're actually pod B, and I think they're pod A, but we're in the corner. We were there first because we took that photo. So that's our proof that we were the first. This is Data Hall 3. There was already quite a lot of anchor tenants that were in Data Hall 1 anyway. So the data center itself is more advanced than that. Data Hall 3 is now full. There are additional walls in there. There are commercial customers in there. That back wall there originally divided it in half. I think they're up to Data Hall 13 now. So the Vertis acquisition of Infinity has exploded the amount of actual tenants that are in there. So it's a very, very busy data center now. So some of these things to do with 12 racks is what we actually bought. We enclosed them ourselves in our own self-contained cube. We were able to connect that cube through the Janet optical networks. Come back to that in a second. We designed our own monitoring CCTV, so I can tell you right now what's going on in there. I can get my iPad and who's been in our cube today. We were also monitoring the environmentals in the data hall, and we were able to tell Infinity, I think, your humidity's off today. And they go, no, it's not. No, it's not. Like, yes, it is. Here's a graph. And I went, oh, yes, thank you very much. So we didn't charge them for that service. And we operated pretty much lights out, and everything new, the storage that we've done, and the VMware hosts, they've all just gone into there. So that's what it looks like. I don't know who this chap, he kept following me around all the time. So pretty much that's what we constructed. It's a closed cube. The flappy bit of thing hanging out of the cab isn't actually a mistake. That's actually where the storage was going. We just hadn't fitted it at the time. And that's what it looks like. It's very, very exciting. Just to show, this is what a Dell engineer looks like. I don't know whether anybody's seen one of these. This is a Dell storage engineer. This is this strange man who keeps... This is not me putting photos of myself up here. These are just only the photos that were taken. And just sort of gives you a flavour of the sorts of activities that took place. And you can see here we were getting this is all the storage going into the boxes that we, lots and lots of boxes of discs going into lots of, like, some weird sort of Lego game we were playing there. So we needed to build a bridge. Sorry I couldn't help this, but, in our Kingdom Brunel's associate to Bristol, we didn't build this kind of bridge, we built this kind of bridge. It's a very, very complicated map. There's actually not as many devices physically in that. That's a very, very virtual sort of overlay. The idea is it's actually supposed to show you is that going through the Janet optical cloud, we have effectively it's a 40 gigabit double diverse path. Most of this was built and labbed at Brunel. We tested every failure scenario there. What if a switch failed? What if a link failed? What if a storage element failed? So that was all labbed and tested, and then when we dropped it onto the wires, it all did what we wanted it to. So, as it says there, it's 4 times 10 gig links that we've actually got between Brunel and Slough. We have dual Sienna nodes. I think they'll also dual Sienna nodes at SDC, so they're pretty much point-to-point optical links. We run them as routed links for resilience. So pretty much everything we do sits over the top of all of that, so the network sort of takes care of itself and services deliver over the top of that. And we've actually stretched our data center at layer 2, and we do separate layer 3 as well. So the idea is very easy to move VMwares between one part of the network and another. And we also use native fiber channel over IP as well. So we've got fiber channel at either end of that link, and a stretched fiber channel A and a B fabric from one side to the other. So it's pretty native and looks very, very similar to how our on-site data centers are operating, except that there's now, I think, 86 kilometers in the top half of that cloud and 184 on the bottom half. We also did some testing to find out whether or not the distance variation in the links would actually cause any variation around things like storage replication, whether we synchronous or asynchronous replication. Didn't seem to make very much. So I think it does synchronous, but falls back to asynchronous if it needs to. We built a new POP. We went for a modular solution. I cannot tell you what plan we got to on this. We started with plan A, which was to build the POP in an adjacent building. That went from plan A to B to C to D to E really quickly. Then we had this really weird idea that we should build a modular one, which nobody liked. Then we went through about 6 other plans, and then we came back to the modular one. And probably at the end, we probably built the original suggestion. It's a generator-backed, UPS-backed cube. It's designed and built to our specification. We unfortunately had to go all around the country and into Europe to look at things that were off the shelf. And in the end, when we tendered it, we went for something that was built to our specifications, so custom built for us. We have 7 racks in there. Most of it's free cooling, so it's very efficient. Not very much in it at the moment. It is not intended to be a data center. It cannot be a data center. We were told it mustn't be a data center. It's not. We'll have some servers in it, but they'll be infrastructure servers. We will be moving the second Janet node back in, and so we're in the process of now taking the Janet node that we've put somewhere else and moving that back into, so that will go back into the primary connectivity areas. It's an SR2 rated enclosure as well, so our new CISO at the time made the specification about how secure that facility needed to be, the access arrangements, the steel that was used, the access control and cameras that we used as well. So it's quite a secure container as well. So we designed everything, it's lights out. There are no new VMware hosts or storage going in it, and we have a phased migration of service withdrawals between now and what will be the 18th of December to bring that online. That is the site of our new POP. That's not it. That's a bike shed. Our ambition is that we wanted it to look like that, and in actual fact, this is it. It was made in Swansea, because I'm Welsh. I'm very, very proud to say that's a Welsh cube. This is a factory visit we actually did. This is this man, I must give this man an awful lot of credit. It's a guy called Martin Roots. He's actually our program manager for the whole of the John Grant Decant project, and he's been with us on a journey, sometimes through the pain, sometimes through the highs as well. we wouldn't have been able to do this without Martin. He's one of the team. He keeps me and Alan honest, that's fair to say. Rags on us a lot when we fall behind. We just ignore him. And this is the lorry that turned up on a very warm summer's evening to drop it off. And there was a big craning operation. And that's now what it looks like now. So arguably it looks like a bike shed, but you can actually see, because of some very pernickety estates people, it actually is the same colour as the building around, so you have to look quite carefully to see it, apart from the generator, which is green. So we are also installing a new fibre network, so blown fibre going around the campus. We're using, after my terminology, ODCs, optical distribution cabinets, so street-side cabinets, all sorts of things. Once again, I sadly had to go to Stanford University to find out how they were doing this, so it was a terrible ordeal that was. Had to go all the way to St. Helens to find a cabinet like this. And also going around some installations that people have around the country. How were people doing their optical cabinets? We didn't just want to have pits in the ground. And there's some pretty awful things that we've seen on reference visits that I wouldn't allow. So it was just a case about going around and seeing all of the components and how people actually use those components to deliver our infrastructure, and trying in our own eclectic way to come up with probably a worse way for us to do them together. This one? This one here? Yeah, we actually bought that. That was actually in the factory. We were trying to get one from a company in St. Helens, the Rainford Solutions. Really, really good cabinets. Huge lead times on it, and said, I'll have that one. So they literally cut a hole in the floor and shipped it down. Still took them 2 weeks to cut a hole in the floor and ship it, but that is actually installed. This was in a council somewhere in Surrey, and it was nasty. So it was an example of what we're not going to do. We are quite advanced in that project. We're about to be in phase 2, which means we're going to be digging up even more sensitive parts of the campus and putting in ducts. And we are working with other projects. It's one of those things that we've done recently. When people say, going to dig up the road while you've got that dug up, can I dig a duct in? It does actually work. You've got to get in there. You've got to tell them there's no delay, there's no cost. You've got to do an awful lot of that. But actually, we have some really good success trying to get, while the project's putting a path in, could you put a duct under there, leave it there, and then we'll pick it up later. The States people can be reasonable. Just a sort of example, you have infrastructure that you find in the ground, tar and pitch ducts. You have to dig all of that up and deal with that and deal with all the knotting. We have a lot of underground tunnels at Brunel. There's no asbestos in them. Well, there isn't now. So you're almost relying on getting these things accessible. This is the tunnel in front of John Crank. That is most of our fibre infrastructure. That has all got to be redirected. And up until 6 months ago, we couldn't even get down there to take that picture. And even with some of the newer stuff, newer pits, it's like you just realise, why did they install it like that? And of course, we're doing it fantastically well. This is us with our new ODC. That one that you think isn't installed, it's installed right there now. And lots of new blown fibre tube going in. And we went for red. Of course, we went for red. We thought, red, danger. No one will cut that. I don't know why you're laughing. It's quite a sensible solution. Why would anybody cut that? So some of the strategic outcomes from the project overall is that we have moved one data center off-site and into the shared shared data center, get there in the end. They've been pretty good, actually. I mean, I would say our experience of the facilities people there and the facility overall has been really, really good, very, very positive. Even between the migration, I guess, from Infinity to Vertis, there's been a lot of continuity. I can't really fault their involvement with us. We have done a huge amount of virtualization and retirement of old servers. In fact, one of the problems we're going to have is in December is a load of servers sitting in the data center, a load of racks that we don't want. So it's quite a wee disposal problem to actually go through. We have been moving services to the cloud. We've got payroll, HR, recruitment, Office 365, and others as planned. So we have a cloud-first strategy at Brunel. So things are not just seen as being virtualized, but they're also seen as going to the cloud. We have procured new server hardware, deployed, nearly connected all of it, Alan, as well. Nearly. And that's helped because that's reduced migration, does leave those things behind for disposal. Storage, new Dell storage architecture has been in for quite a while now. And Alan's team have also taken a really good opportunity to move from VMware 5 to VMware 6 as a sort of clean slate, so everything is basically, split the things into two management platforms and then migrated from one to the other. So that was a good opportunity to do a structural change there as well. The new fibre infrastructure is being designed and built as we speak, so that's evolving. That should be complete sometime January-ish. And it's given us the ability to optimise and reorganise an awful lot of stuff, minimising the disruption. That does extend the timeline a bit, because it does mean that we become a little, not lazy, but a little bit more, let's do it right, let's take a little bit longer. Drives Martin, the programme manager, nuts though. So the experience over Horizon, it's been very, very complicated. I probably would say it's been fun. I mean, everybody wants a project like this once in a while. You just only ever want one in your lifetime. But it has been very complex, and it's allowed us to basically rationalise an awful lot of things that there would have been no opportunity without a huge greenfield site or a huge IT strategy change to do that. So we've been planning, I guess, for the long term with it. Planning is key, and knowing that plans don't survive contact with reality, or as my boss said, plans don't survive contact with the energy. You make a plan, you start the plan changes. The university can change our objectives very, very quickly by strategy. Good partners who are willing to be flexible. I've tried to create a list of all the people I probably should thank, and I'm sure I've missed some people out, but we have to thank Jisc Converters for their efforts with us in the data centre itself. On 365, Schneider and Kinetic, who've been helping with the sort of cabling and the infrastructure that we've installed in there. Maving and Eaton Sensorium, they are the people who designed and built the actual POP for us. The current consortium of products and people, HSL, MCore, Brandrex, Comscope, Excel, Prism, pretty much picked as many people as we could there to actually help us with the fibre infrastructure there. But we are defining standards and standard products, so that sounds like a long list of people, but there are very specific things, there are very specific tasks. Cisco and BT and Dell, technology partners in doing some of that, although the technology in some ways hasn't been the biggest piece. It's been the whole logistics of everything else. And we've now got strategically designs, strategic designs that need attention to the detail. But it does actually mean that you've got to put enough time in to make some really, really good decisions, because some of the moments I think we've been able to reverse. But you can make a strategic decision thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And program management, Martin was the one, I say he probably kept his head, but we have driven him nuts, haven't we? It's fair to say. But that's actually kept the program honest, despite the fact that, from our perspective, our planning was relatively structured, but everything around us, is how do you keep your head when all around you was losing its, that's the sort of experience we did there. But overall, we will be out of our building on the 18th of December, possibly, probably. We know where we're going. Me and Alan have got a map at the moment to pick which desk we want. It's true. Where our teams are going to go. And there's an awful lot of work to do between there and then. And then the fibre stuff will carry on, I reckon, about January, February. Currently, just inside budget, but that's the program manager's problem. It's keeping us honest, like I say. And that's it. Whistle-top store of what we're doing.